introduce myself real quick. I won't keep it long. I'm Brad Ice. I've been with the Corporation Commission for 23 years now. I've started as a field inspector out in District 2. I've covered about every county in District 2. I was a supervisor for roughly 14 years, and I've been the manager of field operations for roughly the last year and a half. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you guys have on just about anything. So.
Are you over all the different districts?
Yes, sir, I am. I manage all 4 districts in the state.
Okay. Well, I'll kind of interject a little bit. What we've done at SOER is over the last few weeks, we've come up with a list of questions from mostly SOER people. I took mine from my production foreman, but anybody out there that's got questions, you know, that we're not addressing, we certainly don't have the, you know, all the questions that everybody has listed here. And so we do want you to interject and get your question answered, because you wouldn't be here if you didn't have some, I wouldn't think. So you want me to just start with a question, or does anybody else have a question?
Just kick it off and then we'll just start the conversation from there.
Okay, this one is from my field foreman. We've got, you know, 2 or 3 disposal wells, and the field inspector went out and opened the backside to check the backside gauge, because we have to have a gauge on the backside that the OCC inspector can read, I believe. And did he notify us before he goes and messes with our well? I guess we were kind of concerned. We don't like people going and messing with our well. Or does he have the right just to go do that?
I mean, that's why we changed that rule. You know, it used to be you just had to have the quarter fitting in there, and the commission was supposed to screw in their own gauge and then open the valve. And we really didn't feel like that field staff should be messing with y'all's wells. I'm assuming the reason that you want to leave the valve closed is so if there's cattle or something, it can't accidentally get kicked open. I mean, would that mainly probably what it is?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't need to leave a valve open.
Okay. You know, most of the time we won't notify you guys when we're pulling up to do it. Most of the time when they're doing their UIC inspections, it'll be during the course of a regular MIT or a RAT, depending on what it is. Every once in a while, we try to get by them and just see what they are. I'd probably need to talk to them about that. So I understand you not wanting to open the valve. Would there be a problem with leaving the valve open?
Us leaving a valve open?
Yeah, I mean, with the gauge in there?
Kind of. I mean, it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, if they kick it off, it's dead anyway, or it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So I guess probably not. You know, some people might have a problem with that.
Okay. I mean, the only thing I'm thinking is if they just do a random inspection, they're probably just driving by on their way to doing something, or they're just out doing inspections in the area. So, I mean, let's say that they call you and say, hey, we'd like to inspect your well. Would you come open your valve? Well, if you don't have anybody close, then he's sitting around doing nothing. I bet we could come to some type of a...
Yeah, hand up, Myra.
Are we there?
Yeah, you're back on.
Okay, sorry about that. To me, it'd be more convenient to have the field inspector be able to do that. It'd save you guys from coming out, but also do understand that, you know, I don't think we should be opening valves.
Okay. Well, yeah, we can work with our field foreman and maybe the inspector could even say, I'm gonna be by there in the next couple of days, maybe leave the valve open for a couple of days or something like that too.
Okay. If I'm not looking at the camera, I'm writing some of this stuff down, so
that's fine.
I'm not ignoring.
Okay, you ready for
And
the,
once we can start having meetings in person, which from what I've been told is in the late fall, then we can start also having just lunches. We had started doing out lunches with the local field inspectors and in the districts. And this will also, that could be a really good time just to have the field inspectors, the local ones at least, there. And that way you're getting, get to talk to them right there too. So we'll definitely put that on the books for the late fall and then continuing on.
yeah, 'cause it's not that big a deal, but, I guess it's just something that can be worked out between the field inspector and our guy too.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna move to the next one unless somebody else interjects. Recent hires of new field inspectors seem to be retired Oklahoma Highway Patrol troopers and county deputies. Has there been a mandate from the top down for field inspectors to have a law enforcement background rather than an oil and gas background?
No, there's never been a mandate for that. It just probably seems like it's happened here recently. The requirements have not changed in the 23 years that I've been here. They're mandated by statute that they shall have at least have a high school graduate with at least 4 years experience in the oil field. And that's all it takes to be a field inspector.
Okay, so they do need some oil and gas.
Yeah, they're required. And actually what happens when someone applies to become a field inspector, it goes through OPM, and oil and gas and our HR never sees it. So OPM actually looks at those qualifications, and they, from the resume, did you lose me again?
You're there.
Oh, okay.
No,
So-
you're good. Sometimes if someone makes like a little noise in the background, it will switch over, but we can
Okay.
still hear you. So just keep.
I just didn't want to talk if no one could hear me.
No,
So, yeah, so OPM will see if they're even qualified, and they've got to have a minimum of 4 years. So there's been nothing mandated from the top up with a law enforcement degree.
Okay, thanks. If I know a lot of your stuff comes from landowner complaints, which is fine. If the inspector goes out and the landowner made a complaint and there's really no grounds for that complaint, do you notify the operator that there was a complaint and you don't find anything wrong?
Yeah, remember I'm over the whole district. We've got 60 field inspectors, 8 supervisors, and all 4 districts are a little bit different. So I've been trying to get all 4 districts the same on this type of stuff. So anytime we get a landowner complaint, we're supposed to fill out a 1085, which is an incident report. That's what we do. So anytime we get a landowner complaint where there's any verification, any violations or not, we're supposed to fill one out for record of it. What I've been trying to get all of the field staff to do is to they'll speak with that landowner, but then I also want them to call the operator. I want them to talk to an operator so the operator does not just get a piece of paper saying something, but even if there's no violations, I want them to contact the operator, and you guys will get a copy of that 1085 incident report showing that there are no violations.
Okay, that's great, because I mean, if they made a complaint, then that means we've got a problem that we can work out with the landowner ourselves.
Yeah, but on the reverse side of that also, though, there are some landowners out there that just don't like you guys.
Right.
So they file complaints, and I think it's only fair for the operators to know that a landowner's filing these complaints. I mean, it's fair both ways around. So that's what I'm trying to get all 4 districts to do it the same.
Perfect.
Mr. Ice, are the
Yes.
1085s online available for people to
No.
see and
No,
see who's been in
that is-
violation and for what?
No, that is the one thing that is not on public record, are the incident reports. Now, anytime you want to see one, you can go through the Open Records Act.
Okay, because I have clients that are asking me about regular incidences in the past for certain leases and stuff we're trying to look at.
Yeah, and that happens quite a bit. We have brought it up. When I say we, I'm sorry. Field staff has brought it up to see if we could get the 1085s imaged. The commissioners are looking at it now. Whether they want to or not, I do not know. But you can still get. So I mean, if you can get a hold, it's on our website. You can get a hold of Matt Skinner, and ask for an open records request. And just if you'll give him the sections that you're looking at, he'll send you any of those 1085s that are in those.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
I have a question from one of our committee members too. And just to let everyone know, we are in the process of also doing like a plugging wells one-on-one with like the local producers, just like this, like a roundtable, and with Brad. And Brad, remind me who you also wanted. You wanted the directors of the 4 fields too, right?
The 4 district managers, yes.
Yes. Okay. So, but this question would kind of go in there, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out. Okay. So it says, in the past, I have plugged a number of wells that I operate and or own a working interest in. Can an operator still sign off as both the plugger and the operator of the wells it operates and wants to plug?
Yes. You do not have to be a licensed plugger to plug your own wells. So as long as you have an operator number, you can plug your own wells without, I mean, you can use your own workover rigs if you have them. So that is still allowed.
All right. Okay, I'll make sure to pass that on. Okay, what other questions do people got? Don't be shy. Let us know.
I have a question about pits.
Okay.
So if you have an existing well that's active and the operator is going to go out and repair the casing, do a squeeze, drill out, are they allowed to have a workover pit, dig a workover pit without it being lined right next to the workover location?
So you're talking about, so the well's already been drilled, it's been producing, and you're gonna go in and work on it again. By rule, all working pits have to be lined.
Okay.
Now, they don't have, there's not a restriction on the mills on the geo liner. I've seen some of them get those really thin plastic. I mean, very thin. So, I mean, as long as you line it, empty it and get it out when you're finished, that's what's going on with those.
Okay, but all pits where any kind of circulation fluids from a well bore have to be lined. They cannot go out with a backhoe, dig a hole beside the well and start circulating and using it as a pit.
No, that's correct. It needs to be
All right.
lined.
All right, we'll have to contact you next time.
Okay.
What do you do with the liner?
It just needs to be removed and disposed of.
Okay, so
Yeah. The only way that you can really bury that liner in there is with the landowner's permission. And in all reality, I realize sometimes that there's really nothing in there. I mean, you know, you put it in there, you get it out. The easiest thing would be just really get rid of it.
okay,
But by rule, if you get approval from that landowner, as long as it's got, you know, a minimum 3 foot of cover on it and approval from that landowner, you can bury stuff on that location like that.
okay. Tell us the process when the inspector finds something wrong.
Okay, so are you talking about when he finds something wrong or if he just gets a complaint, period?
Well, either way, I mean, if he gets a complaint and goes out and something's wrong.
Okay, let's say that he gets a complaint from a landowner. The first thing he has to go visit, he has to put eyes on it. So he's gonna go, he's gonna look at it, and he's gonna verify if there are any rule violations or not. Okay, so if there are rule violations, you know, as I told you previously, he'll call that landowner back, let him know what he's found. He'll call the operator and let him know what he's found, if there's violations or not. Then he'll initiate that 1085 incident report. Then that 1085 incident report will be sent to the complainant or that landowner, and a copy of it will be sent to the operator also. Along a majority of what we do, you know, short of a pollution complaint, we usually start with a 30-day time period to bring it into compliance. So let's say that the first 30 days comes up and the operator hasn't completed the violations or doing whatever they need to do, they'll get another copy. So we'll update it roughly every 30 days. So every time we update it, the landowner gets a copy and the operator gets a copy. Then, you know, once it's closed out, they'll get a copy of the resolved 1085 incident.
when the operator says we've got it covered, does the guy go back out and re-inspect it?
Yeah, we want to verify it. You know, in the past, we've had people say they're done and that it's maybe something was missed. So we want the field inspectors to put eyeballs on it before to verify whether there is a violation or not. We want eyeballs on it at the end. The one thing that helps staff a lot is when the operators will stay in touch with them and update them. Instead of the field inspector, you know, just waiting for the 30 days and going out there, if the operator's been working on it and it just hasn't gotten done, if he'll just call that field inspector and let him know what's going on, it'll go a long ways to extending the timeout and get that kind of stuff done. It helps a lot.
Okay. And I guess-
Dave Guest, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you for letting me jump in. I apologize. I'm not able to join by video, but I'm
Oh, you're good.
between meetings here real quick. I just want to say thank you to Brad for participating. I think what I've heard for the last 20 minutes has been a great discussion, and it's excellent communication, which I think is great between the producers and the commission. So I just want to thank Brad for participating and look forward to more of these, and especially the plugging seminars or the plugging education that we're going to do here in the next month or two.
Yeah, we're excited. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much. Continue on.
Brad, what's like the one thing that you wish more producers would know? Or like, what's a big issue that you're always like, oh, it's the same thing. I just have to keep telling everyone constantly just because they may forget or they're not aware or something like that.
I'm trying to think.
I know it's pretty hard because it covers all of the state.
No, I mean, it does. And there's stuff I'm just trying to think of. I mean, report spills. If you guys report them and if you take care of them, there will be no issues. I just want to make sure that we're not here to drive an operator into the ground. We're not out there trying to find stuff to find people. That is not. We're here to help the operators as much as we are here to help the landowners. You know, like David said, communication is very important from both sides. I mean, from the field and from the operators. And I think there is a big lack in communication. So, I mean, if you guys have a problem, call it in and tell us. Even if you think you have a problem, just call the field inspector. When you get that angry landowner and we can say, you know what, we already know about this. The operators already talked to us. They're taking care of it. That'll stop a lot of that a lot of times. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing.
Just having an open communication with your local field inspectors. Yeah. Feel like a lot of things in the world could be solved with some open communication.
It could. I mean, a lot of this stuff, I mean, as I'm sitting here thinking, you know, there's a lot of things. It's hard to keep track of something that's due every year or every 6 months when you guys have anywhere, you know, 10 wells to 1,000. You know, There's a big difference. So, you know, like I said, when we call with a problem, we're not there to just, like I said, you know, to drive someone in the ground. We're there to help. So just kind of keep that in mind, and we can work through it.
Awesome.
Hello, Brad. This is Joe at Charter Oak. Let me get the video. Oh, okay. There's my video going. Hey, thanks again. I want to reiterate what David and Jim has said. Thanks for coming here and being a part of this. This is great to have open communication. And you mentioned spills, and that may be possibly the most common form of communication that takes place. What is the, can you run through, like, what's the appropriate procedure? I mean, what's the minimum amount of oil and or water on a spill that you'd want to be reported? And what if that spill doesn't get out of the berm, you know, your berm there? Should that be reported?
Okay. 10 barrels of oil or more is supposed to be reported if it leaves containment. Now, containment are tanks or separators or some type of vessel. So if you lose 10 barrels inside a tank battery, inside a dike tank battery, it's still by rule supposed to be reported. Okay, it will be the same thing with water unless it hits waters of the state, which is roughly every stream and pond. Any amount of salt water or any amount of oil or water that hits waters of the state is supposed to be reported.
Mr. You happen to have a rule of thumb to, I mean, how yeah, 10 barrels spent on top of the ground and tell that it's 10 barrels or it's 2.5 barrels? Do you guys have some kind of a rule of thumb that you just kind of glance and say, well, this looks really close, so we probably need to check into it a little closer? Or
yeah, I mean, the rule of thumb is if it comes from a tank, the operator should be able to know what their gauge was before, how much it usually makes. You know, we can get pretty close on that way. Sometimes it's just an estimate from the operator and the field inspector. So the only thing I would suggest is if you're in doubt, just call the field inspector. It's hard to tell exactly when 10 barrels is. I mean, it really is. I've been out on them before. If you're ever in doubt, just call the field inspector and say, hey, you know, we've had a release. We don't know if it's 10 barrels or more. He'll document it.
oh, that's a, yeah, I tell all of my clients, you know, go and talk to your district office and your field inspectors and just tell them, say, hey, I need some guidance, some help, because like you said, you guys are always, it's better if you know about it up front than being blindsided and nobody knows what's going on.
Okay. And I know you guys are supposed to be asking me questions. I've got a question for you, if you don't mind.
Me?
Anybody, all of you really and truly. I've had operators say that their company policy is to report everything, and they want a 1085 on everything for documentary purposes. Then I've had other operators tell me that the more 1085s I get, my insurance goes up. Is there any truth into that?
There isn't with us.
Okay.
I mean, they don't even ask that question, I don't believe.
Okay. I mean, like I said, I've had several different operators say, we don't want 10. You know, some of them don't want them just because they think that a 1085 shows that they're a bad operator. And that's not necessarily true. You guys know as well as anybody, if you operate for very long, you're going to have problems, mechanical, human error. It's one of those inevitable things that is going to happen. So that came to mind when he was asking that. I've never really asked anybody. So
I'm at an insurance company here. I can say that different companies, different underwriters are going to have their thoughts, but honestly, anybody who's been in the business for a while is going to see some 1085s as a sign of good management rather than a sign of too much spillage.
well, that's good to know.
Yeah, you want to make sure you're with a good agent who understands that business, and then also not just the agent, but then the company underwriter working on it knows what they're doing as well. And you know, it's the same sort of thing whether they're insuring autos and somebody's running a bunch of MVR checks or a bunch of 1085s. It's simply a sign of better management and staying on top of things. So hopefully nobody's insurance price is going up because of that.
Well, I've never checked with an insurance company. I've had several operators over the years tell me that. So
Yeah.
I would that brought that to mind, and I just thought this would be a good time to ask some of you. So,
Oh, that's great. I love that. Thanks, Barry.
Sure.
Yeah, Brad, we've never heard of that in any of our audits that the insurance inspectors look at 1085s. I mean, they really want to know the number of wells you're operating, the dollar spends. They base liability premiums on that. So,
okay.
I had very brief experience with this, but it was not in Oklahoma. It was in Louisiana and Mississippi. But in general, most all of your oil and gas state conservation boards are pretty linear as far as the rules. I worked for a CO2 EOR oil company, and they had a old P&A well blow out with CO2 and salt water. And you know how nicely corrosive that is. So none of that was ever a problem until there was a problem. And then everyone got excited about what had been happening in the past and what had not been done. So my suggestion to any of my clients is you always keep very good records and show that you've made a bona fide attempt to look at everything and check everything in case you have a problem. You need to go in and do some remedial work on to keep from having an environmental problem that gets into your back pocket.
Another question also that we've got, you may have kind of already touched on this, but just in case, are field inspectors on a directive from the Jim Thorpe building to be on rover duty, driving around looking for compliance violations such as well signs and trash on well locations? One of our members had said it just seemed to be an uptick on these. So maybe you guys have been getting a lot of questions about it or something like that.
There's never been a directive for them to do that. It is part of their regular job duties to do site inspections, to look for that type of stuff. The only reason I can think maybe there's an uptick that because of that COVID-19 and the downturn in the industry, we slacked off, for lack of a better term. You know, for the usual complaints kind of are like you said, you know, the lease signs, the fire hazards, as long as it wasn't a threat to the environment, we kind of slacked off a little bit. Since the price of oil and stuff, you know, that there's an uptick now in the industry. COVID is going away, more people is getting out. I think that's probably what the uptick is.
I think the whole world kind of was on the quiet side last spring. So,
yeah. So
I don't think it's just y'all.
The one thing I'd like for you guys to keep in mind is if you've looked at our rules at all, they're not the easiest things to interpretate. Okay, so I can remember times that I've had two of my bosses say two different things and I had a different thought. We could all come to an agreement and do it. So there is an interpretation of these rules. Fire hazards, for example. You know, fire hazards to me might be different than to you. So that's one of the other things is I'm trying to get these field inspectors on the same level. I'll just tell you what I've kind of told them is a fire hazard, to my opinion, is if you pull in on that well and the grass and the weeds is rubbing up on the bottom of that pickup. That's a fire hazard. If there's trees growing in the tank battery, that, you know, that's a fire hazard. So even my interpretation could be different than y'all's. But that's what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get all four districts kind of on the same thing. So we're enforcing the rules the same. And it's you know, a lot of little things like that can create problems. Someone might think that trash and debris is one rod laying next to a pumping unit. Well, that's really not trash and debris. You know, maybe there's a Coke can or, you know, a paper cup sitting on there. Our field inspectors should not be filing on little stuff like that, just to be honest with you. It needs to be fairly bad. But then on the other hand, we feel like the operators, our rules have been in place for a long time. If you're not familiar with them, it's worth trying to go through and read them because they change every year. So, you know, just kind of keep in mind that if you will talk to these field inspectors, if you have a problem with the field inspectors, I'd like you to work through the district manager. If you have problems with the district manager, I'd like for you guys to call me at any time if you have an issue. Because if you guys are having issues and if you don't let me know, I can't do anything to change it or to correct it if it needs it. So I just like you guys to keep that in mind.
So if there is confusion on a certain rule or something, I'm assuming a lot of it's just like the legal jargon that you get because you're a government, you know, people. So they have to use all the fancy words and kind of be a little bit confusing, or else, you know, why need them almost. But do they just call their local field inspector and just say, hey, I just want some clarity on this?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I do. Like I said, communicate with that field inspector. If you guys don't agree with them, we're not going to agree on everything from the regulator side to the operators. We don't expect anyone to. But if you will call and talk to that field inspector, if you just can't work anything out, go to his supervisor. If you still feel like it's wrong, get with me. Even if you don't like what I have to say, and we won't agree all the time on everything, you can go up above me. That's how this works. I better not ever hear of a field inspector or someone just, coming after you because you don't agree. I mean, there's ways to work around this. There really is. And it's not that complicated. So
Just going through the process of it.
yeah, there is a process to this, and it does work. It might take a while, but it does work.
Right.
I'm going to go back to the spill question a little bit.
Okay?
So if we have 20 barrels of salt water spill out into our berm, and we've got a vac truck working on the well next to us or whatever, we're going to go pick that up immediately before the inspector could ever get out there and look at it. And
Yeah.
that's what you want us to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Still call him and tell him that happened. It's all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, we don't have to see it before you guys start remediating it, picking it up or anything. All we need is a call that it happened. Then, depending on, all the water in the state's different. Some of it's really salty, some of it's not. So depending on what you've lost, where you're at, it'll determine if any remediation is even needed at all. So that's what the field inspector is there for, to make sure that everything is below any allowable levels. Then we resolve it and it's done.
Well, having worked in other states and working in other states, you guys are easy to work with.
Well, that's good to hear.
Easy to pick up the phone and talk to either my field inspector or the district office managers. They seem to like that real well.
Okay, that's good. We should be accessible.
I have a question for you about hydraulic fracturing operations.
Okay, I might not be able to answer it, but if I can't, I will give it to you. I'll find someone that can.
Okay, on the rule about notice of hydraulic fracturing operations,
Yeah.
is that only a requirement if you're hydraulically fracturing a horizontal well?
No, it's a vertical too.
Okay, because on the rule here in the rule, did they change it? Because on the rule book, it says hydraulic fracturing operations on a horizontal well. And I know they've done some rule changes lately. I haven't gotten a chance to read up on that.
Yeah. What rule are you looking at? Do you have it in front of you?
It's under completions, 165, 10-3-10, section. Page 55 in the PDF of the rule book.
He's got the big book. I saw him grab it.
It's easier for me when I'm doing something like this.
Oh, yeah.
So which of the little rules are you looking at? It might save me time. Is it under the notice?
Yeah, under the notice, under B, subsection B, it's halfway down the page. It says notice of hydraulic operations. Number 1 says the notice shall be given by a facsimile at least 5 days before the commencement of hydraulic fracturing operations on a horizontal well to operators within 1 mile radius of the completion interval.
Okay.
And I know it's kind of really a new thing because we've been trying to figure out, well, we need to change our rules and update them for horizontal wells, and
Okay.
because they were knocking a lot of
Okay.
line.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to have to go through and read these rules
Okay.
just to get, and I can find an answer for sure. What this rule right here is talking about in B is the reason that it's listing the hydraulic fraction. I mean, the horizontal well in the 5 days. That's because of some of the communication we've had between the horizontals and the verticals.
Mhm.
So what they're saying is that the horizontals need to give the verticals 5 days. So if they want to go to try to secure their well, either by setting a bridge plug or maybe dropping the polish rod or something and putting a valve on top, that's what it is. But I am almost 100% sure that even on a vertical well, you're still supposed to fill out the frac notification.
Okay. Yeah, that was the area that everyone seemed to be confused on, because there were instances where directional vertical wells were refractured
Yep.
and offset lease wells were knocked offline. But I can follow up with you at a later date.
Okay, no, if you
Time to
would,
research.
I don't want to sit here and try to read these rules with everyone else on here. So,
Right.
Jason, I'll make sure to connect you guys if you just send me a reminder email if I forget, okay?
Okay, thank you.
We've got about another 10, 15 minutes. So let's hear from some more people. I see some people unmuting themselves, so
Well,
have at it.
I'm going to jump in here. I don't want to steal thunder from the plugging seminar, but maybe Brad can give us just a little background, maybe might encourage more people to attend the P&A seminar. Is there, like, Brad, I'm looking at some notes here. Is there a standard procedure for, say, location and number of plugs and amount of cement used, and particularly if production casing is not being pulled, because that's getting more typical since casing's not worth really anything to speak of, used casing on the ground?
yeah, there is. And this is one of the things when I took over as manager of field operations, when I was the district manager, I knew that there was a difference, and especially in the plugging part across the 4 districts in the state. When I became the manager of field ops, I found out there was a lot more than I thought there was. I have been working on that. So I've met with the district manager several times to go over, the plugging procedures, just so we're more consistent throughout the state. In the rules, there's nothing about, how many feet. The minimum rules are in the rule book, and that's what it is. And it doesn't get it down. We don't want to give anybody, when we give plugging procedures or the okay, let me back up a little bit. I would rather you guys submit a plugging procedure to us, and I would rather have our staff approve it than to tell you guys how to plug your wells. Just for the simple fact that those are your wells, you guys own them, and if you would like to do something, then that's great. So I would rather staff approve them than tell you guys how to plug your own wells. But by the rules, it says that, the gas and oil formations are supposed to be isolated. I know in the past that, I'm going to use the Mississippian for an example because I'm really familiar with that from District 2. There's, I even get confused because I'm not a geologist. There's like 4 different parts of the Mississippian. So instead of setting a plug across all 4, we only need a plug at the top, above the top of the Mississippian. If you have multiple ones inside the Mississippian, it's kind of the same thing with the Pennsylvanian or any of those other zones. So, if we've got something in the Mississippian and something in the Penn, if we have enough room, I've always used as a general rule of thumb, if you've got 100 foot in between those formations, you've got enough room to set a bridge plug or pump some cement. So like on that one, we'd require 2 plugs. And that's going to be kind of on a well by well basis. I don't think we can take every well and just lump them into one. These wells are way too different. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, sure does on the deeper plugs. Now, if you're not pulling your production casing, is it still fairly standard to go? Is it 100 foot below the base of the surface and shoot holes?
What I've told the field staff to do is, if you're not going to pull casing, that you got to perforate a minimum of 50 foot below your surface casing. And you either need to circulate your cement to surface, or you're going to have to run a bond log if it doesn't make it to surface to show where that cement is inside the production casing. The reason that we do that is, I know that you guys are real good at calculating your cement, but a lot of these wells have caverns right underneath the surface casing. And there's been a lot of times we pump cement and we don't get it up.
Right.
And so, so what staff's really concerned about is we get those bottom formations plugged off and we're protecting that base of treatable water. So if you're going to leave that production casing in a hole, that's what all 4 districts should be asking you to do.
If you're done with that, I have a quick question about vacuum. I've had a couple of people come to me and add that are interested in shallow leases. And they've got all these existing wells and they have old car air compressors on them on an electric motor that pulls a vacuum on the backside. If they have been doing that since the 1940s and they don't have a permit to pull a vacuum, how does that work with OCC, or do you need to look into that also?
I know you've got to have a permit to pull a vacuum on any well. So if they've been doing this, they will need to get a vacuum. They'll need to get a permit to pull a vacuum on it. And they'll need
Okay.
to follow those rules. It's been a while since I've looked at that rule. I mean, they've got to supply the commission certain documents for the surrounding stuff. But if they've been doing it this whole time, it would be better if they would just get a permit. I really don't think they will be penalized for it if they would just get it. Now they will be, if our field inspector's out there doing a site inspection, they run across it and realize what's going on. And, that's another thing, if you got stuff like that, it's better just call. Because I really don't see the commission, trying to do anything for what's happened previously. It's only when the field inspectors go out there and find them is when I think it really becomes more of an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Roger, I see that your mic is on. Are you wanting to ask a question? Tyler just unmuted himself too. So I just want to make sure everyone's getting their chance.
Yeah, sure. This is Tyler Fixley. I just want to say thanks to Mr. Ice. He's been a great help for me with any questions I've ever had. He's always been giving me options, and it's fantastic. And we really appreciate all the work that you guys do.
I appreciate it, Tyler.
We can go ahead and start wrapping up. This is anyone's last chance to get a question out. Just real quick, I'll let you guys know that I'll be sending you an email that is basically a link to take a survey. Just tell us how much you liked this, hated this, want me to stop talking, whatever you would like. And then also, if you're wanting to request a PD credit certification, let me know in that email too. And other than that, like I said, I'm gonna leave it a couple more minutes, and then we can all get going on to our lunch, hopefully.
Okay, I'd just like to say real quick, thank you for coming on. You're a big help to SOAR. We try to cater to marginal well producers that don't really have a lot of resources and things. And so by you coming on and explaining rules and what you see that's wrong and what the field inspector's jobs are and stuff, it really helps us out. So we really appreciate you coming on. And I know when Tony called you, you were very, very receptive to doing this, and it's very much appreciated.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity too, because I recognize some of y'all's names that's on here. Few of you, I think it's probably the first time I've ever seen you. There needs to be a lot of communication. If we can, I can't emphasize that enough. If we can communicate between the field and the operators, I think we can get a lot of these problems taken care of. We won't get them all done, but I think we can get the biggest part of them done without them going very far. So, like I said, if you guys have any questions, just call me anytime or email me, however you prefer to do it. Just if you call me, leave a message, because I've always got meetings or something going on. So if you leave a message, I promise I will call you back. I always call back everyone on my messages. Even them knuckleheads that says my car insurance has expired.
I can vouch for that. He always calls back. He's very, very good at communication. That's not always a given when you're trying to have someone help you with a class.
Thanks, Tony.
All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, we can go ahead and wrap it up. Be on the lookout for our next roundtable, which will focus on plugging wells. And other than that, thank you guys all for coming out. Thank you to the SOAR committee members that attended today and helped with some of the questions. Jason, thank you. Tyler, thank you for, asking all your questions. And again, Brad, thank you so much. I know very helpful to our constituency, and I know they appreciate it.
Okay, I appreciate it, guys, a lot.
All right, have a great day, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Tom.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the good information.